Ron, Canada off to a pretty good start in soccer yesterday with a 2-0 win against Australia. If we're looking at the Olympics as a whole, and you have to, as a host, you have to watch everything and be in touch with everything. From your feel and your research and everything you've done leading up to these Olympic Games, what stories are Canadians most interested in as we enter the start of the Games?
Well, we have an amazing track and field team, which is, first of all, we're normally great at winter sports and not such a great summer sports nation, but we've routinely been around 20 medals the last couple of games, and our track and field team won 8 medals at the World Track and Field Championships last year, which is stunning. So we're really strong. We have the world champion in pole vault in Sean Barber. We have the world champion in high jump in Derek Drouin. We have a great runner. We all know Andy DeGrasse. We have maybe the best heptathlete in Brianne Tyson Eaton. We have a great Damien Warner, our decathlete, is the best athlete in Canada. So that's one area going. That's a little later in the games. Early on, the other thing, George and David, that struck me is just the strength of our women's team. The women's program, 60% of our athletes are women for Team Canada. We have the rugby sevens, maybe what the women's soccer team was in London in 2012. And obviously, Christine Sinclair was just so clutch again yesterday. That set up on the goal 20 seconds in, and the goal she scored itself was a thing of beauty. So they are impressive. The women's gymnastics team finished 5th at the London Olympics. Rosie MacLean won the gold, and she's the flag bearer for the opening ceremony tomorrow night. I just think it's really, we're going to interview Abby Hoffman for one of these As Maple As podcasts, and she was kind of the one who started the resistance, started the fight. I think society was changing anyhow with feminism and with just the whole movement to have women have a place in our society back at the turn of the last century. But it took Abby Hoffman and a few others to really flip the page in the 70s, and you're seeing that here in Rio.
Ron MacLean, of course, of Hockey Night in Canada, will be hosting Olympic Games mornings on the CBC Catch. The opening ceremony goes down tomorrow night at 6:30. Ron, you talk about how we're a winter sports nation, and of course we are. And we saw in Vancouver how Canada, and we put all these resources, all this money into the Own the Podium program. Is that something we maybe should start doing more? Maybe put a little more funding into the summer games, because everybody loves the pride we feel when Canada wins a medal in whatever sport it is, summer or winter Olympics. Do you think there needs to be more funding in sports in general?
My personal viewpoint is it's a slippery slope, right? I think on the podium right now we're doing a little bit of soul searching. Mark Tewksbury will be one of our special guests, and I think going forward this is stuff, when you see what happened with state-sponsored doping in Russia, when you saw it with the Chinese were really bad with it in the mid-90s. They had sort of bribed their way. They won at the 94 World Championships 12 of 16 goals, and a guy from the UK, Taffy Cameron, who was a former rugby player and was a specialist in forensic studies and science, he kind of helped WADA create a way to catch the Chinese. But that's the problem when you start to get fixated on medals and winning. And I think even when you have the successful athlete on the podium, you got to really be careful to develop them before, during, and after their career, so that in the end, sports has to be virtuous. And if you start buying medals, I just don't think that's our way in Canada, and I think it's good to create that community. The great thing about Own the Podium or any kind of investment is that you create a culture of a community. It's the coaches, the physio, the people behind the scenes who are back in Canada, that will really be the extended family of the athletes we watch here over the next 16 days. That's okay. But just make sure some of that money is spent on the right thing, which is developing a good person, a good citizen. So that's one fear I have, is don't be chasing medals too much, or you'll end up in that, people will want to cheat. People will be seduced by the gold.
Ron, you talk about the pride Canadians feel winning a gold medal and how it kind of reflects on the psyche of a nation. When you look back at some of the greatest moments you've covered in Olympic history, what is number one, or is there a number one on your list?
There is, David, and it's not to do with a gold medal. It's Marianne Limpert's silver medal in the 200 IM in Atlanta. And my sort of affinity with her was she was an only child, as I am. She kind of sprang out of nowhere. I saw her at the Commonwealth Games in Victoria in 1994, and I knew she was good, and I liked her spark. But she went in kind of playing a little bit second fiddle to Joanne Millar, who's a fantastic, also an athlete who gave me great thrills in my time covering action at the pool. But Marianne's second, Leah Pels' fourth place in the 1500 meter in Atlanta comes to mind. Silken Laumann won a bronze in Barcelona. We all know the story there. As a rule, the fifth place, I mentioned the team gymnastics women, that fifth place in London 2012, I can point to so many examples of where great performances had nothing to do with a gold medal. And I think that's Olympism, right? I really hope that emphasis never changes, that we sort of understand the warrior respects the battle, not the outcome. So, but for me, it's the 200 IM, Marianne Limpert. The last, 50 meters, she got beat by a woman named Michelle Smith of Ireland, who was proven to be a drug cheat subsequently. Her husband, Eric de Bruin, was accused of doping, and she herself was suspended for 4 years for tampering with a sample. She put whiskey, of all things, in her urine sample and was able to mask the doping that way. So Marianne was just a very thrilling performance in the 200 IM in '96.